Hey everyone! So today I wanted to talk about meritocracy and the idea that many of us were raised on that if you work hard, you'll do well in life. But the truth is, we know unfortunately that's not how the world works. I think for many of us raised in the 90s and 2000s, there was this idea that if you worked hard, you could eventually overcome any barrier that came your way and that opportunities were based on merit. But the truth is, it's never been harder to escape the social class you were born into. And a lot of the things that were believed to help equalize have led to making people more stuck in the system they were born into than before. Take education, for example. Being able to have an education is something that not all children have access to. But even having access to an education doesn't always mean better job prospects. Economists have found that many elite US universities, including Brown, Dartmouth, Penn, Princeton, and Yale, take more students from the top 1% of the income distribution than from the bottom 60%. To achieve a position in the top tier of wealth, power, and privilege, in short, it helps enormously to start there. American meritocracy, the Yale law professor Daniel Markovits argues, has become precisely what it was invented to combat: a mechanism for the dynastic transmission of wealth and privilege across generations. There are many reasons why the myth of meritocracy, or the idea that you can just work your way into a better life, is flawed, and perhaps nothing is more relevant than social class. When people have been raised with wealth, they're able to access better early healthcare and education, build social capital through friends and family, and be able to find jobs and land opportunities that are simply not available to others. This kind of privilege can continue to affect people throughout their lives and actually have a significant knock on effect on things like how much you earn and can save. Over time, this compounds inequality, leaving the rich richer and the poor poorer. For example, The Guardian did an extensive study on how privilege affects pay and reported even when those from working class backgrounds are successful in entering the country's elite occupations, they go on to earn, on average, £6,400 less than colleagues whose parents did middle class professional or managerial jobs, a nearly 16% class pay gap. This is exacerbated for women, people with disabilities, and most ethnic minorities. But it also found that support can come from lower down, like people being able to have money from their parents or higher up, like a manager or a boss at a workplace helping fast track or provide a younger person with opportunities. While this might seem like a helpful manager, the research showed that these kinds of sponsor relationships were rarely established on the basis of work performance. Instead, they were almost entirely always forged in the first instance through a sense of class cultural affinity, shared humor, taste, or lifestyle. Other factors like race, sexuality, disability, and gender hugely affect whether someone is able to receive the opportunities they need to better their lifestyle, whether that's education, the freedom to work, or own property. Together, these factors prove that merit, or the idea of working hard and earning or deserving your place in life, is basically impossible. The idea of success, or what we make of it, means that we often look at people as successful or not based on the false idea of merit. But as The Guardian puts it, the lives of the less successful are not less worthy than those of others, but not because they are as worthy or more worthy. There is simply no sensible way of comparing the worth of human lives. And this is especially important because of something called implicit bias, which means that we're all raised with some internalized judgment about people. We may have ideas about class, race, sex, or gender. For example, I grew up in a really conservative society where a lot of my extended network supported men's education over women's. That meant that boys went to school or were prioritized for being in education over women. And it could have led me to believe that men were inherently more important than women. But by actively being aware of encountering these prejudices, we can slowly help shift the needle on how we interact with people. Now, let me be straight here. There are plenty of other rewards to working hard. It helps you gain skills and experience. It can provide structure and build a sense of satisfaction. But it is important to recognize that hard work alone is hardly ever good enough to improve anyone's life chances. In many ways, the poorest people in society often work hardest, and even many essential jobs like teaching or nursing that require not only skills and training, but a huge amount of emotional labor can be highly underpaid even amongst the richest countries in the world. Now, an example of an implicit bias, and one that I know I have been guilty of in the past, might be towards the poor, and thinking that for anyone in poverty, it's essentially their fault, that they didn't work hard enough or else they could improve their chances. And that kind of thinking is what keeps society clearly cut into different sections. But by challenging that thought and taking a look at the data behind it, it soon becomes very obvious that there are a multitude of factors keeping poor people poor and rich people rich. I think to some extent there is a general understanding in society that we all buy into, which is that merit is something earned or deserved, and it is an ideal we hold on to collectively. But because, as we've seen, there can be so many factors at play that determine if someone is successful or not, including what our definition of success even is, understanding our own implicit biases can help us develop a slightly more fair picture of the world. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and you wanted to learn more about access to education, we have a whole separate video on the channel. You can also subscribe to the channel and be sure to like this video and share it. If you'd like to also have a little bit of follow-up reading, you can sign up to our newsletter, which has the link in the description below.